Lisa Bennett here, Workforce Millionaire. You have come to the Truth About Love and Money Summit. And today I have the opportunity to interview H.J. Chammas. H.J. Chammas is an award-winning best-selling author, coach, entrepreneur, and investor who achieved financial independence by investing in rental properties throughout Asia, Dubai, Europe, and America. He is the founder of the Employee Millionaire LLC, a financial education company, not completely unlike mine, and Casa Byte Inc., a real estate crowdfunding company. He has guided thousands of students through the process of financing, buying, renting, and managing rental properties while still employed in a day job. Chammas is the author of 4 books, the multi-award-winning The Employee Millionaire, the #1 international best-selling The Employee Millionaire Personal Workbook, the #1 international best-selling The 4 Stages of Building Wealth, and his newly published book, Millionaire Mindset and Success Habits. Welcome, HJ.
Hey, thanks, Lisa. Thanks for having me on the summit. I'm quite excited, quite thrilled to share, a lot of my experience, a lot of what the good, the bad, and the ugly of really achieving financial independence.
Yes, and you and I have some things in common. One of the first things that we talk about with our the people who are working with us is what our beliefs are around money. We started somewhere. We were socialized with some beliefs. Like I was raised in a family that had very little money, and there were stories around wealth and stories around what you don't do with money and how wasteful people can be, and stories about how it doesn't grow on trees. I mean, there are all sorts of phrases that came from my childhood, right? Like, what was your growing up like? What did you learn in your childhood about money?
Lisa, I think that's the first time I mentioned it in any summit, in any broadcast, in any podcast, in any interview. I was an immigrant. I came from a country that was inflicted by war. I left my country, which is Lebanon. I only had $300 in my pocket, and I went out. I came to a new country. I was facing a lot of fear, a lot of challenges. I remember the first day I was almost going to cry because I was out there having no money in my pocket, and there's a whole new world in front of me. And I needed to get out of my limiting beliefs about money, that you cannot have enough, you need only to have a job, money grows on trees, and all of that. We're going to cover a lot of those limiting beliefs in a while. But I needed to reprogram myself, But the way I thought about it is, a lot of gurus out there, what they advise people is, leave your job and go pursue an entrepreneurial dream. What I thought about is, no, let me leverage my job. So while working for my job, let my job work hard for me as well, work smart for me. Okay. I could leverage my job to start investing in income producing assets that could generate in turn for me passive income. And then I would increase my asset portfolio one asset at a time until such time that my whole passive income will exceed my whole expenses. And then I have the choice. And I would like to underline choice about either stay in a job that I love or just, go pursue anything I want in life. So this is, the mantra I followed. It worked quite well for me. It worked for millions of students that I read about. It works for thousands of students on my coaching program. And it's really awesome. So we need to leverage what we have, our resources.
I see. So you went about it a bit differently than I did. I started with one home and learning how to invest in the stock market. And then when my assets were so great in the stock market, I realized I really needed to diversify further, because even if I had diversified my portfolio holdings, if the whole market crashed, I was going to lose a lot of wealth overnight. So I began diversifying into real estate. So I went pretty much from the stock market into real estate, although I already owned my first home, which is now a rental and making tremendous cash flow for me, which is great. So you started by realizing that you could leverage a job to begin investing in real estate. So you went there first.
Exactly. And I started investing into rental properties, and I started investing into multiple cities, multiple countries, as you read from my bio. And then I realized that, hey, it's only a process. If we follow it, we have a clear criteria, we could really remotely invest any part in any part of the world, anywhere that a property would give us a positive cash flow. And then after I achieved financial independence, I chose to start pursuing my dreams, to open my own companies and stuff like that, because this is what I wanted in the beginning. But if I went into that route in the beginning, what if I failed? I would really lose it all. So my thinking process was first become an investor, achieve financial independence, and then go out and open whatever kind of companies you would like to do, follow your passions, and get the ball rolling out there.
So you have 3 secrets to leveraging your job into financial security. What were those 3 secrets?
Yeah, so the 3 secrets is, the first secret is what I call is the power of leverage. Because, we all need to know how to do more with less, how to be resourceful. It's like I always tell people, remember Tony Robbins. He always speaks about resourcefulness. So when you leverage, you don't leverage also only other people's money, which we call OPM. Most importantly, you leverage other people's time, connections, and knowledge, because when people are watching such a summit like this one, or they're reading books, or watching webinars, or attending courses, so on and so forth, they're leveraging other people's knowledge. So yes. I'm sure you have tens of years of experience, and the same goes for me. Now we really sum it up in like a 30-minute discussion, and people could leverage that. So once they go to the power of leverage and they have the resources they need, then they need to go into what I call a plug and earn model. They need to follow a process because they don't need to reinvent the wheel and lose everything by trial and error. Because if you go by trial and error, you would lose a lot of time and a lot of money. So you want to minimize all that risk. So once you start following the process, it's all about now we go secret number 3, which I called is the power of repetition. Just remember Arnold Schwarzenegger, he always speaks about the power of reps. You just need on repeating, exercising until you achieve results. And in the same way, repeating a process that you have mastered, one asset at a time, one property at a time, it will take us to what I call a virtuous wealth building cycle. Because each asset that you're gonna own will start paying you positive cash flow, and the extra money, your total income will increase, your total debt to income ratio will improve, the banks will gonna give you more and more money, you invest them in income producing assets, and you keep on building your portfolio by all leveraging now your job, but also the income that you're having from your assets,
yes,
like rental properties.
Yes, because that shows as your gross income, even though you have a number of mortgages against your gross income, and you definitely can leverage that. I've been doing that for years now. That is definitely possible. In the US, is it as easy to do that in other countries, or do you know? Is US a place where it's particularly easy to do that?
Lisa, I'm investing in the Philippines, in Singapore, in Dubai, in Spain, in the UK, and the US. What I learned in the whole process, the whole world is only one big village, not city even. They all follow the same processes. Like all the banking system, they follow the same process with some small differences here and there, but nothing major. Whatever works in the US could work anywhere in the world, and vice versa.
Interesting. So you don't have any special tax rate? You must be taxed in all those countries, right?
Yeah. Not in all the countries, by the way, because in some countries like the UAE, like Dubai, you pay 0 taxes, and this is why I'm living there. And I love investing in the UAE because it's a 0 tax haven. You invest in all those properties and you get 0 tax. Whereas in the other countries, you do it like the US. What you do, you open LLCs, and you put all your expenses into those LLCs, and then you pay taxes only on the bottom line, which is the EBITDA or the net profit. And in that way, you really minimize all your taxes. And in some countries also, you can add the depreciation as an expense, and this will really minimize your taxes a lot. And sometimes we call it a phantom income, So most of the times, I tend to pay almost 0 taxes. Everything is legally done by following really, by learning the system, having a strong team. This is the leveraging other people's knowledge, having a strong team next to me, like lawyers, accountants, etc. They will help me to learn the secrets of each country has its own nuances. And once you learn that, you can really, by being legal, just minimize all your taxes. Not avoid, I said minimize. You should never avoid taxes, but only minimize them legally.
You'll end up in jail somewhere if you avoid all your taxes.
Yep.
So where do you recommend that people start? What if they do have a full-time, they have a good job, they're happy with their income, no matter what has happened during the pandemic, they still have a job. Where do you recommend people start?
I recommend people start, first of all, with their own education. Before they start jumping into, I want to invest in Bitcoin or stocks or real estate or whatever, they need to start into their own financial education. Then they also need to really tackle their mindset, which I would like to talk about today, about the limiting beliefs, because most often, and really with the hundreds and thousands of students on our programs, what I learned from almost 90-something% out of them, each of them were standing in their own way to success. So they were their own obstacle. Could you imagine that?
Yeah.
So what we do on those programs, we help them overcome their own fears, their own limitations. And once they do that, everything else is easy. You can easily learn a process. You can read a book. You can follow a course. You can have a coach, a mentor, whatever. But first, you need to get over yourself, and then you need to get all this education. And the rest of the process is really relatively easy. It becomes only technical.
Okay. So I think you and I are definitely in agreement on the education part. You educate people, I educate people. I start as young as people in middle school in the US, teaching them about the basics of money and compounding and what it means to have your mindset that you have by the time you're in middle school, and whether you spend, whether you save, whether you spend and save, and what that can look like in the future. So we play some games in the junior highs and in the high schools that show what your money can do for you. And I use real data from stock that I've purchased for those games. So how do you work with people's mindsets when they come into you as a client?
So what we do usually is we sit like what we call a discovery call. We sit with each individual of them and we try to understand what's stopping them. So what they do, we get to understand their financials. We ask them questions. We try to understand their own limitations. And then we help them, and it takes a few weeks to help them overcome those limitations before we go any further into the technical part of the investing process. Like for example, for most people, of course, we don't have time to discuss all the limiting beliefs, but we can mention a few of them. For most people, what they do is they think that a job provides financial security for now and at retirement. And here what I tell people is, did you know that nearly 80% of American workers say they're living paycheck to paycheck, and just 40% of Americans only have $1,000 saved to answer for any emergency? Now, I would like to ask you, how is that possible in the greatest economy of the world? How is that possible also if you go to the UK, to Dubai, to Singapore? It's the same across the world. The percentage could differ a bit here and there, but it's crazy, yeah? So when I looked into this kind of limiting belief, what I've realized is most of employees, they get stuck into debt. They always want to fund their lifestyle using credit.
Yeah.
So what they go into what I call bad debt, which is bad debt to finance things that will depreciate over time or even don't have any value at the beginning. At the start, yeah. So once they get stuck into this cycle, so what they do is they become captive to this paycheck. They just run on the treadmill. They want to get into the next paycheck to relieve a bit of their agony, and it goes into a vicious cycle. So the empowering belief what I tell people about is you need to take action, and you need to be in control of your future income, because even when you have a job, we all have learned from the 2008 and 9 global financial crisis, even from the pandemic 2 years ago, a lot of companies had to restructure. They let people out of the door. They kicked them out of their job. And this was the same job they were depending on for the rest of their lives. So people need to change that. A job is not something secure, but it's something you can leverage to start building your asset portfolio, because the banks will be after you to give you all that debt. But if you use this debt in a good way, and that's what we call good debt, you can invest them into something that will generate you passive income.
Okay, I get it. So the mindset I came from was we were pretty poor. And I think children develop a mindset around money, many of us, to sort of accommodate how they're growing up. So we were poor. I watched my mom balancing her monthly budget on the back of an envelope every month. And one month I looked at the numbers, and what I know, this is now her cash flow statement, right? That when I looked at the numbers and it came down to $5 on one of the months. She knew the money coming in was X plus 5, and the money going out was X. And so there was $5 left at the end of the month. And I looked at that as a 12-year-old and I said, you know what, I'm going to become financially independent. I didn't even know what that meant, HJ. I just knew that they talked about it in the movies. And I didn't even use the word millionaire in my mind because that seemed way too big. But I wanted to be financially independent and not be on this rat race my mom was in that she couldn't get out of. There seemed to be no way of her getting out. So for me, it was a feeling of insecurity. It was a feeling that it could all fall apart. It was a feeling that just getting by was my life. And I didn't want that when I grew up. And I manifested what I committed to when I was 12 by some tenacity and getting educated. Getting educated was critical. So I got educated, and I had a process where I didn't look at the money. I just made sure this thing happened every month. I didn't look at it. I wasn't paying attention to it, and it was growing for me. So you and I both teach people how to grow money, not so much by paying attention to it, but by getting your systems in place and having the mindset that it will grow for me. I have this, I'm planting it, it's going to grow.
Yep. Also here, I love your story, Liz. Amazing story. So also to add my bit, on this story is, I always tell people you need to have your big why. You need to have a big why. What do you want out of life? And most often when people think about their big why, it's always about personal thing, relationship, about love. And this is Summit, Love and Money.
Yes.
I love the name. About the spirituality, about their friendship, their relationships, and then their careers. And then what they all realize that money is only an enabler to achieve all those things they want in life, the big why. So referring to what you were saying, don't think about the money too much. Think about your big why. Follow a process, educate yourself, and the money will start rolling in. But if you think only about money, you're gonna get stuck in this circle that you're gonna go into circles and don't know where you're going. So you need something bigger in life. You need to have something big to pursue it. For some people, it could be something they're escaping. They don't want to be poor. They don't want to fight about money, and this also works. But for me, the positive thing, the big why, always is something very powerful, much more powerful than escaping a negative thing in life.
Okay, so what was your big why?
So my big why, so that's something I started writing in 2008. At that time, I was really struggling financially. I was poor, all in debt. And I started writing down the things I wanted in life. So at that time, I was single. So I wanted a wife to die for. Really, that's simple. I wanted a great relationship. I wanted a wife to die for, to love. I wanted a mansion over the Mediterranean. Because I love the Mediterranean Sea. I come from this part of the world, yeah. I wanted a mansion that overlooks on a valley, overlooks the sea and the mountains. I wanted to have $1 million in my bank account, and I wanted to achieve more than $10,000 at that time in passive income.
Okay.
And lo and behold, I started. You see, everything is about the three big items are personal, and money was only an enabler to achieve all of that. Then I started investing to rental properties, one property at a time. It took me 7 years because at that time I didn't know that much. It took me 7 years to close all my debt. I was really having a lot of bad debt to really become debt free and then start investing and earning all the passive income. In 7 years, I become financially independent. And then when I looked into my big why, which was really written on a document, I had those goosebumps. Wow, I achieved everything on my vision, although it was not a vision board, but it was like a vision board committed to a piece of paper. And then, wow, I told my wife, At that time, because she didn't know about my board or the things I wrote. So look, I wrote this in 2008. 7 years later, in 2015, wow, we achieved all of that. And,
Wow.
and one thing to mention also, my wife was always a cheerleader for me. She was supporting me. I was getting her involved. She was always part of my team as well.
You have a promoter. Promoters are helpful when you have a big vision and you're on track for your vision. Yes, it's nice to have someone promoting you. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Indeed, indeed.
Yes, I honestly, the only thing I saw when I was a child was that I wanted comfort around money. I didn't want that scratchy feeling every month that the money was just going to the ends were barely going to meet. I just wanted enough breathing space that I could do things like travel, like buy something for myself.
Yep.
We weren't allowed to even have anything for ourselves when I was young because there just wasn't enough extra money. So yeah, I didn't have a big why when I was 12.
I remember those days. I used to go to my neighbor's house to play with their toys because my parents couldn't afford to buy me those toys. I remember all those days. We were really poor. I remember that. And it was something that I wanted to escape early on in my life. So actually, at the age of 7, I started doing some small businesses. It was like trying to make money at school, and I got kicked out of school because of that. Yeah, because I always wanted to escape poverty. Yeah.
You're not the first guy I've talked to who was an entrepreneur in grade school. I have heard these stories before, selling bubble gum or something like a leveraging program where they were making more money. It was, boy, kids can be.
I was selling, those, the Kinder Surprise eggs. You have those toys.
Yeah.
So some of them used to be rare. It was really rare to find them. So I used to buy them, then sell the toys to my colleagues in the classroom. Then I got more money. I sold it for a premium price because I wanted this specific toy. I get more money to buy more eggs. I would enjoy the chocolate, get more money. But also I learned the secret of probability. The more I had money, I could buy more eggs. And the more eggs, the Kinder Surprise eggs I bought, I would increase my chances or the probability to really find those rare toys that kids will look for. And then I will sell them at a premium price and so on and so forth.
Wow. Very clever. Very clever. So do you have any big takeaways from the real estate industry that you've learned that we should all know? Something like your egg story?
Yeah. So what I would recommend for people, start small, because a lot of people want to go to multifamily and the big commercial stuff without having too much experience. Start small. I started with 1-bedroom apartment.
Okay.
And I repeated the process with 1-bedroom apartments. Then I started to increase my portfolio and the size of the properties into duplexes, triplexes, and villas, townhouses, and then into multifamily, because there will be a steep learning curve. No matter what you learn, no matter what books you read or courses you attend, there's a lot of a learning curve that you're gonna have from the experience, because you will have each situation is different, each investment is different. And you need to learn all those things on a small scale before you blow it up before you scale it up and start. You don't want to lose big money, but when you scale up a successful model, wow, this is where you're going to achieve big results with too many zeros on the right, because it's just, which is the secret number 3 is about the power of repetition. Yeah. Now, something I would also like to mention.
Yeah. Go ahead. Well, I've discovered when the properties that I have that a property manager can make or break you. It's really important to find a really good property manager. I mean, once I've financed it, however I'm going to finance it, I've purchased it, I know it's a good home, I know it can be a good rental. The property manager, and I've just bought in a city that I'm not familiar with, right? So what do you recommend to people to get the best property manager they can have?
That's a great question. So first of all, what I recommend for a starting investor, be the property manager of the first couple of properties, because you have to learn the ins and outs of managing a property. Because if you didn't do it yourself at the beginning, how can you manage someone? How can you read a report? How can you ask the right questions for a property manager? Yeah. So after you have the experience, and let's suppose you want to invest in different cities, remote cities or remote countries, you need to ask the right questions. You need the property management person or company to share with you the portfolio of properties they're managing and the KPIs. So meaning to say the rent roll, the income, the expenses, how do they manage the all of that, the cash flow they're having on their portfolio, what happens in the case of eviction, let them share some stories. What about if they're not collecting rents on time? What do they do? How do they get the right tenant even? I always tell them you need to get the right tenant at the right time and at the right rental income, because those three go hand in hand. And you need to learn from, you need to listen to them to see how they do it.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's something that's aligned with your experience, because I just mentioned you need to do it yourself for the first couple of properties. Now you have enough experience, but when you listen to something that you can relate to, is something you have experience with,
Mm-hmm.
you can have a peace of mind that, yeah, this is the property management company or individual I would like to work with. But then what I do is I give them budget. So I agree with them on a budget. So this is the plan. And I do what I do. We do a quarterly business review. We call it QBR. Every quarter, we have a Zoom call with all the property management across the cities that are investing in. We look at the budget, we look at the actuals, and then we see if we're overperforming. I also ask them why, because that's a learning. If we're doing much more than we budgeted for, there's a learning to have here so that we can do more of it. And if they're underperforming, I also challenge them. We need to understand why. I need to look at the corrective actions, but most important in the future, the preventive actions for this mistake not to happen again in the future.
Got it. Wow. That is very systematic. That's the kind of stuff I used to do in high tech. You do this how often with your property managers?
Well, it's a quarterly QBR. We call it QBR every quarter. Every 3 months we do that.
Wow, yeah. Awesome. There is one thing I learned about getting a property manager in a city that I'm not familiar with. First, I had my realtor recommend one because the realtor has been around forever and she's been selling homes in this city forever. And so I went to the one she recommended. So let me tell you this story, because to me, this has to do with love. So the property manager I called first time, they didn't call me back. Second time I called them. They finally called me back on the wrong number. I had left the right number with them twice. So finally we reached each other and I talked to this woman who said, oh yeah, we're really busy and this is what we do. And I have 4 accountants in the office. So the big thing, her big like golden ticket for her company was that she had a whole office of accountants. And I thought, well, what about the house? You know, what about the renters? And I wasn't terribly impressed with her approach and the fact that she's telling me like she's too busy for me. It's like I'm about to pay her for unknown number of years in her business, right? So I started calling around other property managers in the area, and this now I'm going random, but I'm looking at the list, I'm looking at their websites and kind of whether it feels friendly or not. And I called a guy who runs a small property manager company, and he answered the phone. And I think he might have been driving, but he answered the phone. It didn't go to voicemail at all. I told him I had just bought this house, what street it was on, and it becomes mine, you know, soon, and I need a property manager. He said, oh, I know exactly where your house is. He said, I have other houses on that street that I manage. I like to make sure that I get the street, it's going to have the lawn done one more time before the snows come. And I like to do the plowing myself to keep your overhead costs down. And I do some of the handyman stuff around the houses to make sure I keep your costs down. And, you know, the tenants get taken care of faster. And I thought, you know what, the song I'm hearing from this guy, he loves the work he does. He's not talking about accountants to me. He's talking about what it feels like to own a house and take care of a house, even if someone else is living in the house. He's not talking about numbers. I said, you're hired. He has been the best property manager I have had to date. He's in Wisconsin. So I was very happy about that, but it had to do with his, like the feel I got from him, right? He cared. He really, really cared.
And that's really important. I love that you mentioned that, because also you need somebody who's rolling their sleeves and doing the job. Because a lot of people just blah, blah, blah. They're big talkers and give you presentations, but they don't know what the heck is happening on the ground. So you need somebody like this guy who really knows everything about the property, the details, not only the numbers. So yeah, I totally agree with you, fully aligned.
Thank you. So do you have any other tips for us when we start getting into the real estate industry? I love this stuff.
Yeah, so one limiting belief I always also feel people that stops them to do anything is the fear of failure. They always think that failure is bad and that mistakes are a reflection of their own incompetence. And that's scary, by the way. They feel if I fail, what will people think about me? And you know, the personal truth really is about, they're worried about the perception of people. So they don't want to appear as a failure in front of their wife or in front of their spouse, let's say, in front of their friends, in front of their colleagues. And they're afraid of making mistakes. So what I really teach people to transform this limiting belief into an empowering one, and that they should celebrate the opportunity of failure. If they think that failure is an integral part of success, and that always opportunities are found on the other side of failure, when they overcome their failures, even in the process, they will become better people. You know, they will have a lot stacked into their learning curve. And that's something we, the people, need to overcome. Failure is great. I would love to fail, but it's bad to fail twice at the same mistake. So each mistake, you learn from it and move forward.
Okay, learn your lessons. You know, that actually is a really good lesson for us, because we build resilience through failure. If we never fell down when we were learning how to skip and run and even walk, you know, we wouldn't have built up the resilience to be a good walker, a good runner, a good skipper. We all fell down and scraped our knees. So yes, in finances, I have lost $500,000 in the stock market. I haven't lost money in real estate yet, HJ. Maybe that is, do you believe that's a safer bet than the stock market? But the stock market in general will always go up. It always has. And real estate in general goes up, although some areas tank. So we are dealing with a certain amount of risk.
Yeah, I'll give you my perspective on that, about the difference between the stock market and the real estate. In the stock market, specifically if you're investing on margin, if the price of a stock tanks, you need to cover the difference, otherwise you're going to have a margin call. Whereas in real estate, if the price tanks, you're not obliged to sell, because if the rental income is still covering for all your expenses and the mortgage installments, it's only a paper loss. It's okay, because the market, we know, it goes up and down. Although always on the longer run, you know, it goes up also in real estate. But the beauty of it is, it's only a paper loss. You don't need to sell. You're still having this cash flow. You're still earning this passive income, and you can sell whenever you want to cash out the profit. Now, in some cities, to minimize the tax, you could refinance the property, cash out all the profit for free, tax-free, without paying taxes. In some other markets, they don't have taxes, like Dubai, for example. You just can sell for a profit without refinancing, cash out all the profit with zero capital gain tax. So it depends on the city you're working, you're investing in. But the beauty of it, you're in control. You're not at the mercy of a company to increase the value of a stock. You're in control. You can sell whenever you want. And whenever the market goes down, you just clip on it, keep getting this rental income until you wait until the market goes up. And it always rebounds and goes up again.
Yes, right. And some people wait it out and some people don't. Yeah. I mean, there were parts of California that were, maybe 10 years ago, parts of California that the people were walking away from their houses because the market was soft. And, you know, those areas have doubled and tripled by now, but it took a while, right? It had to recuperate. And so you have to have a certain amount of
at that time, by the way. Yes, at that time, I recall this actually about 10 years ago. And what happened when those people were going out of the market, the investors were going in the market.
Yeah.
And those investors are the one who took them. It's like going to the mall and everything is on sale. Property is worth $1 billion, you know? And they were scooping all those properties, and now they're benefiting from all the capital gain that they earned after the market has rebounded.
Yeah, that's a smooth move for a real estate investor. Even if, you know, at the time the market's really low, just hold on to it. Things generally improve. I mean, the state of California tends to be a really good place to own property. I don't know about Dubai. Dubai has no tax and they let foreigners invest in their properties. That's not hard to do.
They do, because they have a smart government that wants to attract investors. They want to attract entrepreneurs. Just come in, open a company, do your investment, do your stuff, add to the economy. Because when you're investing, you're helping the government to grow its economy. By the way, yeah, you're providing houses for residents to come in and work in the country. So and this is how they pay you back. You're helping them, they pay you back with zero tax. Just come in and let's shake hands, let's put our hands together and build the system, build an economy.
Wow, that's very business-like. That's a very business-like government. Definitely. All right.
I really like that vision. Yeah.
Thank you for what we've covered today. I really appreciate it. Is there any last tip you'd like to give everybody before I show them your slide?
Yeah, I think just one last tip is, because always when people want to invest, they always think it takes money to make money. And indeed, when you want to invest in rental property or real estate, it requires a large amount of money for this investment, as we all know, yeah? But when I tell them to start thinking in a different way, that indeed it takes money to make money, but the question is, who said it has to be your own money? And this is what I tell people. This is how you leverage. You learn how to leverage other people's money. If you know how to borrow good debt, if you know how to purchase at below market price, you can get a high loan to value, and you end up paying with almost zero from your own pocket. So it's all about really knowing what to do. It's about having proven methods, also clear criteria, investment criteria, and the budget needed for investment should never be an obstacle for them to start investing into rental properties. The only obstacle, as I mentioned earlier, is their own mind.
Got it. So start with your own mindset and realize there are different ways to invest than perhaps you have ever thought about. And get in touch with H.J. Chammas if you'd like to think about his method. And he teaches this all the time. So I am going to share out your slide. This is H.J. He can be reached at employeemillionaire.com. There's a lot of good educational stuff on his site, folks, so make sure you go visit it. He can be found on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn as H.J. Chammas. His email is contact@employeemillionaire.com, and he has a gift to you. Would you like to tell them what your gift is about?
Yeah, so we spoke a bit about those limiting beliefs, and I recently launched a book called Millionaire Mindset and Success Habits. So I would like to offer it for free for all the audience on the summit, but not only this book for free. They just go to this link and they can download it automatically for free. I would like to offer them on top of that a free training, a masterclass, which is a training. We will go into details of how to get your finances in order, how to invest, how to get OPM or other people's money, how to invest into rental properties by following a clear process. We're going to share a lot of value. Nothing will be sold on those webinars or master classes. Pure value. It's my way of paying it forward. It's my way to pay it back because I've been there. I've been struggling. Now I really want to help people out. I make money from investments, but my goal is to help people with my courses and my coaching programs.
Well, thank you so much, HJ. I appreciate it. So when you watched this video, there's a link under it that says HJ's gift is here. When you click on that, you will get to a page that will get you into both the ebook, the download for the ebook, and the free training masterclass. This is a wonderful present. Thank you so much for doing this for the audience today. And
my pleasure.
Thank you for the work you do in the world to teach people how to get themselves out of the rat race and to make money work for them. You and I are both in alignment on this, and I appreciate your time today.
Love it. Thanks.
All right, signing out, and please make sure you come to the rest of the Truth About Love and Money Summit. I'll see you all on the other side.